Government watchdog group Judicial Watch has filed suit against the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, the ATF, for records surrounding an Obama administration attempt, I know you all remember this, to restrict the sale and possession of ammunition for the AR-15 by proposing to reclassify the ammunition types as quote-unquote armor piercing. Now, I'll remember that debate. Now, the lawsuit was filed after the ATF failed to respond to a FOIA request that was filed on May 14, 2018 for 1,900 documents that were related to the effort. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton said of the failure to comply with the request, quote, "The ATF refuses to comply with federal open records law," adding that the ATF has withheld records for over 3 years concerning the Obama administration's shady attempt to institute gun control by restricting ammunition against guns, end quote. Tom Fitton joins us now to discuss this lawsuit. Tom, thank you for being here.
Hey, Kate, good to be with you.
That's tell us about this, because I remember when that whole debate took place, and I remember, the discussion over armor piercing, and it's not surprising to see that, of course, probably some holdover people within the department are refusing to cooperate with individuals seeking answers as it relates to our rights. Tell us about this fight.
Well, this is an abuse of power by the ATF. As your listeners probably know better than I do, the anti-gun folks have been figure out ways to do an end run around Second Amendment protections for arms by pretending that ammo isn't covered by the Second Amendment and restricting access to ammunition. In the case of this Obama ATF, they said, well, let's restrict access to AR-15 ammo in large measure by reclassifying it as armor piercing. Now, there was significant pushback, and even the Obama administration saw the writing on the wall and pulled the regulation when they were faced with opposition by 200 members of Congress and millions of Americans. But this was an abuse by the agency to lawlessly designate this ammunition as armor piercing in a way to restrict access to or the practical use of the AR-15, make them useless because you don't have the ammo to use them. We asked for the records, and it's now years. Much of this litigation has been during the Trump administration. And they found these records, these 1,900 records, in our first lawsuit, said they weren't subject to that FOIA. So we sued them again just to get access to these 1,900 records about, for instance, talking points about the regulations and other key documents. And it's this was a shell game by the ATF on these records. It shows you they really don't want to pony him up because they have something to hide on this gamesmanship by the Obama administration in terms of reclassifying the ammo. Right.
Well, and it's a bureaucratic restriction. It was a bureaucratic rights grab, is what it was, without any answer to the individuals for all of our rights for our rights being infringed upon, and for such a bunk classification too. I mean, we had this whole discussion about armor piercing, and we've, obviously, and you have as well over at Judicial Watch. I mean, this has been litigated in tons of different writings and in debates on television, etc. But for such a specious argument for this bureaucratic rights grab, I mean, this is why there's that fourth state. That's pretty terrifying to think that it can happen just like that. I'm glad that Judicial Watch is pressing for more information on this. How would you like this? How would you like this to conclude?
I'd like the ATF to follow the law and make these records available under the Freedom of Information Act as they're supposed to. And when it comes to releasing the records, they should err on the side of transparency rather than redacting everything. It's one thing to sue for the 1,900 pages of records. It's another thing to get them and have most of them blacked out. So it's up to the ATF and the Sessions Justice Department to decide whether or not, again, they're going to protect the Obama administration's, as you point out, their power grab to try to do through regulation, which only could be done, frankly, by changing the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the route that they don't want to go, because they know that they would never win that way. Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch. Always a pleasure, Tom. Thank you so much for what you do. Appreciate you out there.
Thanks for the coverage. Thank you, Dana.